Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Dale Barzy. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. And today, I'm very, very pleased to welcome my guest, Charlene Johnson. Charlene comes to us out of California, USA. She's a nurse with over 30 years experience, and recently she retired as a manager of perinatal services at South Sacramento Kaiser. Charlene is a course creator. She is a master facilitator for caring science and health math. She's a dynamic speaker and she leads discussions on race through storytelling. And Charlene says that she is passionate about inspiring nurses and healthcare workers to reinvigorate and maintain their why. And Charlene is also a podcast host. Her podcast is When the Moment Chooses You. So we have a lot to talk about. Welcome, Charlene.
I am so excited to be here, Jill. Thank you so much for inviting me to the show.
It is my absolute pleasure. And I will tell everyone that I had the great pleasure of speaking with you before, and it has been pleasure to talk to you. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. I've been looking forward to this. So tell me, though, why are you a nurse?
I am a nurse. I think originally it was because my mom was a nurse. My mom was, I think what they would call back then, she was kind of like an LVN, but without the official title of a LVN. But I used to see her get dressed and, stuff like that. And then as a child, I always said I want to be a nurse or a flight attendant. Those were like my two things that I wanted to be. And so I think um, the heart to take care of people was always with me, and so that's the nurse won. Totally won. And so that's why. And I'm like, they call me a love bug because I am a lover. I love people. I love sitting with people in their suffering. I love being a part of people any type of way. That's
Mhm,
just like who I am.
And it's interesting you wanted to be a nurse or a flight attendant. And to me, those are two things that require an adventurous spirit. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So your mother was a nurse. This is something you saw and you wanted to emulate and all of that. Um, when you got into nursing, though, was it what you thought?
It actually was. It was definitely what I thought, just to be able to. I've had some very searing moments in nursing. I've had some very high and I've had some very lows, but I just look at both of them making me who I am today. But I think it really was. I did not expect to deal with discrimination and racism like I did. That was like, that kind of blew me away. But otherwise, to be able to care for another human being, I loved it. Loved that. I worked in the NICU, and so
Mhm.
that was like my favorite thing to do, to work with those little preemie babies. I felt like I was stepping in the gap for the parents that couldn't be there at night,
Yeah.
and so that was like a passion, and I absolutely loved caring for our families and our babies.
So was perinatal services the only way you worked in those 30 years?
Yeah, so I did NICU first, so the neonatal
Uh-huh.
intensive care unit. I
Yeah.
did that for about, I don't know, maybe 8 years, and then I transferred to KP, and I went into the special care nursery first. And then my director saw leadership in me, and she got after me and kept getting after me and said, "Hey, you should be a nurse manager." Yada da da da. I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to do that. I love what I'm doing now," because I was going to deliveries, helping babies come
Yes.
into the world. It was
Yes.
like beautiful, and so I was good. But I knew that God was calling me to step into leadership because I had started getting a little bit restless, and so it was
Mhm.
time for something different. And so that's kind of how that happened. And then after, so maternal child was 23 years total, which is what I retired from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
love it.
Awesome. 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 One of my favorite areas also. So
Yeah.
I get that. There's nothing quite so, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but it is very fulfilling. It is very
Yeah.
fulfilling.
Yeah,
to
it
watch
really
that.
is. Just to think about, you are bringing future presidents, future business leaders, future school teachers into the world. I mean,
Yes.
it's pretty sobering to think about that I had something to do with that.
Yeah. 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 What though do you think after all this, you've been here in a 30-year span and things have changed over those 30 years, I know, but what would you like to see change?
What I would like to see change is definitely there are some organizations that are working on it. They're not as diverse as I think they should be. I think we need to match our population that we're caring for. We need to see more leadership, more people of color um, in different levels of the hospital system. I think that's what I would like to see. I would also honestly like to see people move from task, the nurses and the physicians and the care team, really move from the task to really heart to heart connection, really leaning in to understand this other human being on the other side of you. And so that's why I absolutely love Dr. Jean Watson's Caring Science.
Hmm.
And she really explains about me being while I'm doing. I could still do the task, but I really want to touch this patient's life so that they'll never forget me. So I think I would like to see that. I think with the pandemic that came in, some of our nurses kind of moved to survival mode and they're
Hmm.
just doing what they have to do.
Yeah.
But we really need to focus on our healthcare workers more than ever. That's my personal opinion and observation that I've seen that if we can get our healthcare workers healthy and whole again, then it will be no problem to care for the patients.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying, and I get that. Um, I have to think that our healthcare system has moved, or in my experience anyway, has moved almost to a total business model.
Yes.
And until if we don't shift from that business model, I mean, I think we all understand that healthcare has to be paid for. There has to
Yeah.
be some, some part of a business model. But until we shift from that total business model to a person model, a patient model, a people model, I
Yeah.
don't know if we're going to get to where you want to be. It's going to be that learning curve.
Yeah, I think it's that it will be very challenging, but if I had a dream, I would dream in that way. And I absolutely agree with you because it's so frustrating to be a leader in a system and you cannot help. You know what I'm saying? You can't like
Yes.
break through there. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to be the light in institutional darkness. I'm
Yeah.
going to speak up when I need to speak up. But ultimately, I had to just like focus in on where my heart could really make change, and that was with the people. And so
Yeah.
my love for the people was the most valuable thing that I could do in that particular organization or period as a nurse leader.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I get that. And you say that you lead discussions on race through storytelling.
Yes.
So was it your own experience that inspired you to kind of focus on that particular thing?
It actually was. I think what my defining moment, or I should say, the moment that called me, which was my podcast was birthed out of,
Mhm.
was really when we had the three. It was in 2020, right at the same time of the pandemic, when we saw really the murder of George Floyd was the one that really
Mhm.
got to me, and so I had never really been one that speaks up or share my story. I actually was pretty silent as I moved through and up
Yeah.
uh, the corporate ladder, but these things had happened to me. I just never shared it with anybody. And so when that happened, I was so disturbed that I went in, I'm a woman of prayer, so I went into prayer and I heard these words: what you do in this moment will determine your destiny and dictate your future. And so I know I had to move from anger and anguish to action and impact. And that's where I found my voice. And I began to start hosting listening sessions for those that were affected first because I needed to people were like struggling, they were suffering and nothing was being done. And so I at least instigated those conversations. It was very powerful. We were all bawling, sharing our stories that we have faced, just working within the institution. And
Yeah.
then I expanded it and invited everybody that wanted to be a part of it. So our allies and people, other people that were also having similar problems. And that just was very healing for us. It really helped to put it out there on the table. It's really tough to talk about, but let's lean into this conversation. And it really helped educate also because because of all of this awakening with me, I
Yeah.
shared my stories. I had like people had no idea what I was dealing with or what I dealt with as I was coming up because they
Yeah.
see me smiling, they see me happy, it
Yeah.
looked like nothing bothers me. But here I have all of these horrible things that have happened.
Experiences.
Yeah, I just didn't allow the thing to break me, that I allowed the challenges to make me stronger because, my mom and my
Yeah.
dad, they taught me that. So thank God for my mom and dad that gave me those core values that'll say, you know what, do not allow anybody's words to define who you
Define
are.
you. Uh-huh,
Yeah,
uh-huh. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I love what you said at the start of that answer. You said you wanted to move from anger and anguish to, oh,
Action and
impact and
impact.
passion and impact.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. I love that. I could almost feel it happening as you said
Oh, yeah.
that.
Well, because you know what the tendency is to be so angry and you stay angry and you become bitter and you lock up your love flow. And so I did not want to stay in that state because I was like, man, what can I do right here where I am to make a difference? I'm healed. I feel like I've went through the process of, cutting
Yeah.
away the layers of trauma that I did deal with and had
Mhm.
to restore. I felt like I was strong enough to be able to have these conversations where a lot of my peers were like, no, I am not talking about this. This
Yeah,
hurts. I cannot talk about it and I don't want
yeah,
to be a part of it. I was like, I have got to. You feel that
yeah.
call.
Oh,
That
yeah.
call pulls you, and then you have no
Mhm.
choice but to be that light in the midst of darkness. And so I am so thankful that I found my voice and I was able to speak up before I retired. I mean, I could have took all this with me
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
wouldn't have made an impact like it did. Like when
yeah.
I did that, it literally opened up so many different things. I did a big 3-part series where I was the first one that did the racial discussion after George Floyd. And it was like over like 300 people on the call. And it just became, I mean, it got a serious momentum. And then they start asking me, could you come speak here? Could you come do this? And I was like, my heart was so open because I really wanted to make a difference. I wanted people to feel comfortable enough that if they weren't black to come to me and I would share with them and I'd talk to them. And some people just wanted to ask questions and they were just embarrassed to ask questions. And I really
Yeah.
opened up my heart and
Hmm.
I wanted to be the one that felt that safe space so they can ask whatever they want, even though it seems like it may be a stupid question, but I'm here because I love people. I love all people.
Yeah,
That's just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And right here, before I miss anything, I'm going to again talk about this podcast of yours because I think it is awesome. First of all, I love the name. It draws you, it makes you think for a moment. When the
Yeah,
moment chooses you. Um, Very often we think that we choose our moments.
yeah.
And your podcast is saying to me, maybe not really. Maybe it's the other way around, and you've got to recognize that you're being chosen. Um,
Yes. Oh, you know
and
what? I
so,
think you hit the right thing, Dill. You have to recognize because the
yes,
moments come left and right.
yes,
But if you don't recognize them, they keep going.
they
So
keep
that's so
going.
powerful. That was a very key point that you hit there. And I got to tell you where that kind of sort of came from. So during all of this that happened in 2020, we had a president. He was the president of EID, I think, Equity, Inclusion, and
Mhm.
Diversity. But anyway, he was giving this speech. This was the first public speech for what was going on for the organization. And he said, there are sometimes when we seize a moment, but then there are other times that the moment chooses you. That
Mm.
word blew up in my spirit like strong. And it impacted me so hard and so profoundly that I wrote it down. And then I just start like writing about it. And I was like, okay, I know what I need to do, but I didn't birth it till 2 years later. But it was so significant. It gave me like a call to action
Yeah.
to be okay with sharing my story and be okay with making people uncomfortable because I'm
Mhm.
uncomfortable every day.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. And as you talked about that, and what occurred to me is that sometimes there are people who covertly make you uncomfortable.
Yes.
And then there are some times when people make you uncomfortable or people's actions make you uncomfortable, and they, because of their own experiences, whatever they might be, don't even understand that that
Yeah.
is what is happening. And so you opening up, again, is another learning experience for some people to understand. You know what? I made a misstep without even knowing that I made a misstep.
Yes, yes, exactly. But see, if you never talk about it, you don't know. Like my master's project, I did culture, humility, and mindfulness practices in the perinatal space because I wanted to have nursing staff have better interactions with our marginalized populations. And
Hmm.
so took them through this experiential culture humility training, and we had very tough conversations. And so that started the conversations where people were like, "Oh my gosh, this is something I would never talk about." And so what they would do when we left our sessions, they'd go out and then they like operate in those culture humility
Yes.
principles. And a lot of them caught each other saying things that were inappropriate. And they were
Yeah.
able to have those conversations, but with heart. Yeah, so it
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah. 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 It is pretty cool. It is pretty cool. Yes. So, what advice then? You've been through a lot. You're a nurse with a lot of experience, not just clinical experience, but experience with your colleagues, experience within associations and stuff like that. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a nurse?
Yeah, I would say when you feel that calling, because I really think I first I would say don't go into it because of the money, because there's some sobering moments, and you really have to go into it because you have a love for people, because you feel called to help humanity, people that are sick. And so I would definitely encourage nurses, people that have that passion in their heart, to absolutely go for it because it is such a rewarding profession. But the advice that I would give to you is to always understand that nursing is your occupation, but you personally, I believe, have a vocation too. Because if you can merge who you are with what you're doing and why you're doing it, you become very, very impactful. So don't forget about you as you go and do your nursing school and all of that,
Hmm.
because we
Hmm.
have a tendency to get so busy involved in this nursing thing, working 16 hours a day, working nights, doing all of that, and then you don't even know who you are. And so the fulfillment is not there.
Fulfillment is not there. As you were speaking, you brought to mind, I spoke to another nurse the other day, and he said something that to me was very profound. In thinking about it now, I'm not even sure if I conveyed to him how profound I found it. But he said, I am not this way because I am a nurse. I am a nurse because I am this way, because I
Yes.
care for people, because so that's why I'm a nurse,
Beautiful.
not the other way around. Um,
Yes.
and if you, I think as you were just speaking, I realized that if you recognize that, then you have, it's easier for you to maintain yourself and recognize who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easier for you to really go in with those intentions that you set. Like
Yeah.
one of the big things that I always wanted to do, because I don't know if you've been in report and then someone gives you, oh, this patient is really horrible and da 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 da.
Oh,
They're telling you all of their perception. And I always stop them. And I said, you know what? I really don't, just stick to the facts and
Yeah.
then let me be the difference maker because I'm
Hmm.
intentionally going in as the healing environment. I
Yeah.
am going to make a difference. And so
Yeah.
that part of it right there, I loved being able to really get in there with this difficult, quote, difficult patient. And you see that like they're fine. They just needed somebody to listen to them and to really lean in
Yeah.
and to be
Yeah.
with
It's just
them.
a person in distress.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. 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 So Charlene, we talk about all these things that you did. You're a speaker, you have your podcast going and all of this. What do you do for you though? What do you do to care for you?
Oh my God. I absolutely love, first of all, I love my family. So we are really silly people and we get together and we have a blast. And so that is always something that fills my cup to actually, and I think it comes from so much loss that I've had because I lost, so about a year and a half before COVID hit, my big sister passed. She was only 55. She had a massive heart attack and died. And then the pandemic came, and then my baby sister passed, and she was only 44. And she had like a heart attack. And so the, my mom is not here, my dad is not here. So this deep sense of loss, yeah, it makes me like really enjoy moments. And that's why, that's another when the moment chooses you. We
Yeah.
can't get these moments back. So I really am enjoying every moment. Ever since 2021, like when we came out of the pandemic,
Yeah.
the next year I felt so like everybody was struggling. Everybody was going through
Yeah.
different things because of what we had just encountered. We were isolated. You everything was taken away from you that you had freedom and access to. And so I kind of hit this burnout point again. And so I finally said, I'm taking a whole month off. So I took that off and I got so quiet. And I found that quote that I'd always use on my page or anywhere. And it says that you don't die when your heart stops beating, you die when your heartbeats have no meaning. And I was
Mm.
like, oh my God, I lost the meaning to my heartbeats. So I am so purposefully, intentionally going to rediscover those. And that's when I started the podcast. That's when I started looking and planning for retirement. I started to say, I am going to only do those things that is feeding my soul because every heartbeat matters. And I was like, okay, Charlene, you're 58 now. So I want to be able to go live some.
Yep.
And that's why I jumped. So I jumped because I did not want to live in regret later. I wanted to be able to say, I launched and I did this thing that was in my heart. I followed the whisper of my heart. And even if I failed, Dale, I was willing to just do it anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And that is the thing. You don't know if you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
You hope you will, and you work towards that. But you don't know that for absolute certain. But what you do know is that you stepped into it, you give it your all, and that in itself is, uplifting. It builds you for something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
It builds you for something else. So I have one more question, Charlie.
Okay.
If you could tell me in one word what you would say is the most essential quality of a nurse, what would that word be?
Compassion.
Compassion.
Yes.
Compassion.
I
Yeah.
really would because compassion is an action word.
Yeah. 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 And it almost has to be the center of our being. It has to
Yeah.
be the center of our being. And our compassion has to extend inward and outward.
Absolutely. You just hit that on the head there, Dale. Because it's not just about compassion to humanity, it's compassion to yourself. And
Yeah.
many times I think that nurses they lack self-compassion. I know I did. I had
Me
to have
too.
a awakened moment that, oh my God, Charlene, you're being true to everyone else except for yourself.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
finally start listening to the whispers of your heart so that you can really be fulfilled. And at the end of your life, you can say, you know what? I did those things that I wanted to do. I went out there. I took a risk. I touched lives, just to be able to, that's fulfilling to me to know that I'll be able to say that and live with no regrets.
And live with no regret. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Charlene, before you go, any last words you'd like to leave us with? Any gems?
Any gems? I think my gems would be I already shared the quote about making sure
Hmm.
that your heartbeats are meaningful. I think that's the most important thing that you can do. When you start feeling unrest, when you start feeling restlessness and agitation and frustration, really take some time off and understand what's the root of what that which is going on, because there's obviously your soul or something's trying to tell you that maybe you need to shift into a different not profession necessarily, it could be, but
It
maybe a
could be.
different I mean, go from MCH to something else, or maybe become leadership, or maybe go into administration. There's so many innovative ways
Yes.
and things that we can do, especially as nurses. We are like amazing. We can go so many different places. So that's my biggest thing is when you start feeling unrest, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it, because if you continually ignore the misalignment that you're in currently, your
Yeah.
soul is going to constantly be crying out for something more. And so
Yes.
that's what I would say mainly, just to listen to your whisper.
On that note, Charlene, thank you so, so very much. Listen to your whisper, she said.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for this conversation. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it. It's
Okay,
been
thanks
great.
for having me.
My pleasure.